everyone, and welcome to the Varsity Voices podcast, where we bring you the inside scoop on the Chicago Catholic League football and important information on high school football in Illinois. Make sure you follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and on X at varsity_voices1. We're also on Instagram at _varsity voices and Facebook at the Varsity Voices Chicago Catholic League Football. You can also email us with any comments or questions at varsityvoices312@gmail.com. I'm Joe Frevaletti, one of your hosts, and here with me, as always, is your other host, Dan Frevaletti. Dan, today we have another special episode of From the Coach's Office, and this time you had the chance to catch up with the new head coach for the De La Salle Meteors, Harold Blackmon, at one of their practices. So you had a chance to go out there, watch a little bit of practice, interview the head coach afterwards. You know, what were your thoughts about, the practice and Harold Blackmon and what he's got facing him at De La Salle?
It's the one interview I've done so far where I've actually attended practice. So, and I think I said it there during the interview, but I love De La Salle. I love going there. I think it's a super cool venue. Traffic's not great getting there from where I'm at, but once you're down there, it's a pretty cool place. Great history there. They've done a nice job of having great facilities for the kids to practice in, and the practice was just a walkthrough. So there was not a lot of information to be learned. I know that, Coach Blackmon and I discussed a lot of things, from challenges in the program to, what challenges he's going to face early on, to how he wants to build the program, what his vision is for it, where he was at as far as practice. I think the most interesting thing is maybe not something he specifically said, but a similar thread that I'm finding in some of these early interviews, Joe, that is that the summer is appreciated, right? 25 practice days,
Right.
But it is a challenge to make consistent headway for these coaches because of all the things they are competing against. The travel baseball season doesn't care that IHSA has 25 practices now, and family vacations, which are completely reasonable, work for some of these students and coaches. I don't know if people realize how many coaches are not teachers, so they don't have the summer to spend a ton of time, and off to spend a lot of time coaching football. They have to go to work. So there's a challenge with a lot of that. And, finally, one thing is it's motivation, and 25 practices without a game to look forward to is just not fun. It's a double-edged sword. I always say that one of the things that makes football special is that it's difficult. It's hard. Practice is no fun. You want to be bored, as an adult or parent or fan, go watch a football practice, because they are not the most exciting things in the world. You think they would be, but there's a lot of teaching, teaching first step, second step. There's really a lot of little minutia that's not the most exciting thing. So trying to keep kids motivated from early June, looking at all summer and then through November is a challenge. So Coach Blackmon they have those same challenges that I think all schools probably do throughout Illinois. As I mentioned, it was just a walkthrough. They have some pieces. Now they have some people to replace that we'll touch on in the interview, but they have some pieces that can win them football games. And while it's going to be a learning process in year one, they certainly have some talent that can scare people at every level, from offensive line to the quarterback position to all the skill. Defensively, the same thing. I think it'll just be a matter of, do they have the numbers to have the depth that it takes to succeed, through the course of the year.
Yeah, one of the things I noticed in listening to the interview that you did with Coach Blackmon was that, and you mentioned this several times in regards to the different challenges that he faces. Now he came into a challenging situation to begin with, right?
Hmm.
Not that they didn't have some talent obviously that he could work with, but they were 4-5 last year, right? Missed the playoffs. Um, they had some bright spots with some good players who ended up transferring and leaving the program. So, but one of the things I was impressed with Coach Blackmon is that he was very, he's sticking to his process, he's sticking to his program, he's going forward with the guys that are there, right, and working with them. So that impressed me a ton in listening to him talk about that.
Yeah, and you get the same feel when you're with him. There's no panic. He's got a plan in place. He's very confident that he's got something to sell in De La Salle, and talking to area football players and students that want to come to that institution. He thinks there's a lot to tell about, and he's right. He's right. From alumni to, like I mentioned several times, the facilities to his experience being a Chicago Catholic League player, a Division I football player at Northwestern, an NFL player for the Seattle Seahawks. Now back coaching in the Catholic League. He's got some things that he can really talk to young athletes about, and why he might make a difference in their career.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so let's get to the interview with him. It's not real long. I think it's about 9-10 minutes, but some real good information that he shares in this, and some good questions asked by you, Dan. So let's get to the interview right now.
Welcome to Varsity Voices, and we have a special From the Coach's Office edition today, as we're thrilled to welcome distinguished Leo Lyon alum, the Northwestern Wildcat alumnus, and former Seattle Seahawk, the new head coach of the De La Salle Meteors, Harold Blackmon. Coach, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
So you were kind enough to invite me out to practice. I was able to watch. I love coming out to this facility. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful day. It looked like a good practice. How's the summer going for you?
Summer's going well. We're just finishing up week 2 today. The young men have a week off next week, and we're looking forward to getting back at it in July.
Excellent. Well, you've coached in this league before, so you know how tough it is. You were gone for a couple years, but what made you want to come back after a couple years away?
I just think it was everything lined up the right way. And I'm a Catholic League guy, obviously playing in the Chicago Catholic League. And I told my wife there was only one team I was ever interested in coming back if I ever were to come back. And just happened so this job came open. It's 10 minutes away from my house.
That's great.
And it gives me an opportunity to do something that, I've been passionate about for a very long time.
Excellent. Well, you've got 25 sessions this summer. It's equivalent to like 5 or 6 weeks of regular season practice, but you accepted the job in March. It's not a ton of time to prepare. How difficult was it? How fast do you have to try and get up to speed?
I think the biggest challenge is not the physical. It's not the physical process or getting them up physically. It's more mentally. It's a change in regime. Mm-hmm. So there's a change in mindset, change in expectation, and not saying that the previous coaches did it wrong, but every coach has a different way of doing it.
Sure.
So I think that's the biggest challenge, is just really changing the mindset throughout the entire program.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you've watched film from last year and saw the team. And how much will you have to? Is it all new verbiage, everything from start to finish, and how much adjustment will the players have to make?
It is new verbiage. Yeah. I think the plays are similar to what they ran previously, but it's just the way we get to the plays, and it's a process. Just having the players learn our language. But I feel that, once they learn our language, they will find our system to be just a lot more efficient.
Okay.
And that gives them an opportunity to focus on their fundamentals and play fast football.
Excellent. Yeah, that's what everyone wants, right? Play fast. Don't be thinking out there. Looking at the bigger picture, what else do you want to accomplish as the leader of this program?
There's a saying, a person asked the coach, how's the team going to look? And the coach response was, I'll let you know in 20 years. And that's the same thing here. I mean, we want to develop men, and that's our primary goal. So winning football games, that's just part of the process, but that's not the end game. So our thing is we want to develop men. We want to make sure we have great young men in the building. We want to make sure we have great students, and then we want to develop them into being the best, most capable athletes they can be. So those are our goals as a coaching staff. That's my personal goal. And that's the value that we want to give our parents for each and every one of the players that touch our program.
That's great. That's a great goal to have. It's looking at the big picture. It's developing the whole man, so to speak. So it's a great outlook. And speaking of players, you returned 3 all-conference players from Miles Green, Caleb Navarro, and junior quarterback Kenyante Lewis. How much will you lean on those 3 players to lead their teammates in the summer and early in the season?
So Miles and Kenyante transferred.
They did. Okay. I wondered about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So they both transferred. I wish those young men the best. The new expectation wasn't something that they were up to, and everybody into each his own. And I don't wish anything ill on those guys. But Caleb, he's been here. Obviously, he's managing baseball and football when he's here. He's done a great job, and he's extremely smart. I think he's more of a quiet leader, and I think Caleb is up for the challenge of actually performing without those other 2 guys. So,
right.
We're in a good position.
Good. Well, the Red Division, outside of yourself, they have the newest coaches in the Catholic League. There might be some early conference games where there's a lot of unknown. Does that make it tougher to prepare, or are you going to do what you do regardless and see how it works out?
Yeah, I think the focus is us.
Yeah.
And one thing I've told our young men over the past 2 weeks is the one thing we can't do is let De La Salle beat us, especially right now. So once we learn to focus on us and the opponent is just, again, part of the process, part of the journey, we'll be okay. So I'm not aware of the turnover in terms of the Red Division and coaches, but every challenge is a good thing. It gives us an opportunity to see what we're made of.
Excellent. Well, in preparing for the interview, I went through and looked at some of the background on De La Salle, and there are some serious alumni that have come through here. I knew about the Daly family. What I didn't know was that there were 5 mayors of Chicago that came through. Both Bryant and Greg Gumbel are alums, and a lot of others who have gone on to make their mark in the world. How important is that tradition to you?
It's extremely important. And when we talk about value and really selling value to our families, those things are important. I can say, hey, that 94 that you ride in on, that's Dan Ryan. There's a statue of him outside.
Right,
as an alum.
right.
When you talk about connections to just city and government jobs, we have a long history of that. And we do have a strong alumni network, and we're located in the heart of the city.
Right.
So I feel that there's great value in the school, and as you said, our campus is probably one of the most beautiful campuses in Chicago.
It's beautiful,
and it's just it's an outstanding place academically, and I feel like we're definitely on the rise athletically, and just based on my short time here, just from a social standpoint, our school is so diverse, and kids are allowed to come here and be who they are, where they are, and I feel that is something that's unique within this environment as well.
Excellent. Well, as I mentioned in our correspondence, we're both Northwestern guys. I'm older than you, so you had a much better career than we ever did. But I've got a tough last question for you. Sure. So, correct me if I'm wrong. Did you play for both Coach Barnett and Coach Walker at Northwestern? Okay. And then in your NFL experience, you played for Mike Holmgren. Correct? Yeah. So those are 3, big personalities, a lot different. Which one, or maybe a bit of all of them, but which one had the biggest influence on you?
Oh, wow. That is, that's kind of a tough question, right? So I'm going to...
All right, I got one.
Yes, I'm going to give what appears to be the political answer. Each and every one of them had their own impact. And I would say not one was more than the other. Obviously, with Coach Barnett, he was the one who recruited me.
Sure.
So I attended Northwestern because of Barnett. And even in my coaching style, I take so much from Coach Barnett and Coach Walker in my coaching style in terms of trying to be a great motivator. I learned that from Coach Barnett. Holding players accountable to the fullest standard, I've learned that from Coach Walker. Mm-hmm. And then with Coach Holmgren, in the NFL, it's more of a business.
Yeah.
And you don't really know your head coach in the NFL like you would know him in college. But
sure.
Coach Holmgren was a businessman, and he was on the offensive side of the ball, so we didn't have a lot of interaction.
Right, yeah.
But it was still great to play under a legend like Coach Mike Holmgren, for sure.
I'm sure. Well, that's great. Well, Coach, I really appreciate you joining us and welcoming us out to practice. That'll do it for us from beautiful Parenti Field on the south side of Chicago. Thanks for joining Varsity Voices Special Edition from the coach's office. I'm Dan Frevaletti, and please listen anywhere you get your favorite podcast. Give us a follow, and feel free to send comments to varsityvoices312@gmail.com. Right.
All right, excellent. Another excellent interview, Dan. You're going to be the resident expert by the time actually this first season, or our first season of podcast is over.
Yeah. Right, I've got to come up with about 1,000 questions. No, you're going to hear some repeats along the way for sure.
Yeah, well, some of the things I took note of when I was listening to that interview about Coach Blackmon, which resonate with me as a former football player, as a parent, as a supporter of institutions, good institutions. He said he has high expectations, right, for those that are on his team, and I'm sure others that he's involved with at the school. That's a key thing for a program, not only to build it, but to build it successfully. You've got to expect or have those high expectations for your kids, or else they won't strive for them, right? The other thing that was key is he said, "I'm developing men." He's looking longer term. Yes, he wants to win football games. That's why he's hired, and that's why he's there. But he's taking a bit of a long-term vision, and he wants to develop these kids into men, and that 20 years from now, when they come back, or when he talks to them, or when he looks at what they're doing, he sees how successful they are and knows that he was a part of that. The other thing that he mentioned was selling value to the families. He's really bought into De La Salle, right, and its history and who's been there. The overall program itself, the school, and it sounds like he's focused on really selling the value of the institution and probably what he does as well on the football field to families or prospective families who have kids who might be considering coming there. So I think those are all really key points and a good basis for someone in his position to develop a really good program.
Yeah, I agree, and he has a chance to make a difference in these young men's lives, and so he understands that. I thought it was interesting, the influence from Coach Gary Barnett and Coach Randy Walker. I played for Coach Randy Walker when he was an assistant, and accountability is his thing. He is all about it, so I completely understand that. He wants to hold those kids accountable, and that is going to be a big part of what he does. And the motivation factor of Coach Gary Barnett, he was second to none in doing that, making people believe. Belief without evidence was one of his big terms. And so, and it's not like De La Salle was super far away. They are one of many teams that looks at their Catholic League schedule or looks at their schedule and says, "Gosh, we're 4-5." Right? We are right there knocking on the door. So there's no reason to believe that they they are going to take a step back. They're going to, be really down this year. I didn't get that impression at all. So I think he's got an opportunity to have a good season on top of building a program, and into something that's sustainable for several years.
Yeah. Well, we say this about every team in the Chicago Catholic League, but they have a tough schedule, right?
Shocker.
Yeah, shocker is right. There's, like every team, there's no layups on your schedule, so they're going to be challenged, for sure. But it sounds to me that he's ready for that challenge, and he's making sure his kids are ready for that challenge, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out over the course of their season this year.
Yeah, he's built programs. He built St. Lawrence. I mean, they were pretty down, I think, when he was first there, and he was able to get them to the playoffs, and so he did some good work there. We had a chance to coach against him, and their teams were always difficult to play against. He does not believe in doing a ton of stuff, but what they do very well. They are excellent at keeping you off balance, using their offense, and he will utilize the players that he has, to the best of their ability. So like I said, I don't expect them to take this big step back. I think they are. I think the best is yet to come, but I don't think that means that they have to, expect anything lower, than what Coach Blackmon wants this year.
Okay, good. Yeah. Again, Dan, excellent interview. I enjoyed it. Enjoyed listening to Coach Blackmon as well. So looking forward to some big things for the coach and his program. So that's it for this special episode of From the Coach's Office with Coach Blackmon from De La Salle. Thank you for listening. Make sure you tune in for our next episode, where we will most likely bring you another From the Coach's Office episode with an interview with Marian Catholic head coach Nick Lopez. Make sure you follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and on X at @varsity_voices1, Instagram at @the_varsity voices, and Facebook at the Varsity Voices Chicago Catholic League Football. You can also email us questions or comments at varsityvoices312@gmail.com. Again, thank you for listening, and make sure you tune in to our next episode.